Have you ever wondered what your life would look like after you finally get everything you've been working for? A good education, a good college, a good job, and a good salary. Maybe even the life you've always imagined? We grew up believing that once we achieve these things, everything will somehow fall into place. But what if it doesn't? To stand that, let's meet Tony. Tony was never the student everyone expected him to be. He wasn't the kid who always came first in class. In fact, throughout most of his academic life, scoring even 60% was salvage. But there was something else happening in Tony's life. While other kids were busy studying, playing, and figuring out what they wanted to become, Tony was helping his family with their business. That was life. School, family, work, and then one day everything changed. Family business was no longer there, and suddenly Tony had to look at his life differently. People around him were moving ahead. Some had good colleges, some had jobs, some were earning money. Everyone seemed to have figured out something. And Tony, he was standing at the starting line. And we all believe that this is the best thing that can happen to anyone, that we can start it all over again. For the first time, he realized something is uncomfortable. He was running out of time, so he made a decision. He would change everything. A guy who had struggled to score 60% would now aim to something that seemed almost impossible, 95%. He gave up his free time, he gave up going out, he stopped doing many things that he used to enjoy, and his life became very simple, very basic. He just studied, worked, sleep, and repeat. There were days when he questioned himself. There were days when he failed. In fact, there were 2 years where he failed. And there were days when goals seemed completely unrealistic. But he kept going. Months passed, year passed, some failures were there, but eventually, one fine day, something happened that Tony even wasn't sure was possible. He scored 97% in one of the toughest competitive examinations in the country. The same guy who once struggled to cross 60% had now 97. For the first time in years, Tony felt like he had finally gotten it. The next target was obvious, one of the best colleges in the country, a place that could give him the education, the network, the opportunities he has always dreamed about. He applied, he waited, and then reality arrived. Because your present doesn't always forget your past, the years Tony had spent away from academics hadn't simply been disappeared. His earlier academic record mattered. The things he had done before mattered, and the decision he made before also mattered. And suddenly, the 97% he had fought so hard for wasn't enough to erase everything that came before it. Tony had learned something painful that day, that sometimes you can work incredibly hard today and still be judged by what you did yesterday. Tony eventually found his way forward. Maybe it wasn't exactly the part he had imagined. Maybe it wasn't the college he initially wanted. Maybe the job he eventually got wasn't his dream job either, but he kept moving. And when he finally got the job, everyone around him thought Tony made it. Good education, good college, good job, good salary. Life sorted, right? Maybe not. Because getting the job was only the beginning of another chapter. Because now came the pressure, the long hours, the difficult day, the comparison, the people earning more, the people getting promoted faster, the question that eventually comes to almost everyone. Is this really the life I wanted? And suddenly Tony understood something. He had spent years preparing for next milestone. School, college, job, business, salary, education. But nobody had taught him what to do after reaching them. And maybe that's the problem. We spend our childhood preparing for our adulthood. We spend our teenage years preparing for college. We spend our college years preparing for the job, and then we spend our working years preparing for the next promotion. But somewhere along the way, we forgot to ask ourselves, what kind of life do I actually want? And that's where Tony's story really begins. Because his college degree doesn't define him, his first job doesn't define him, his salary doesn't define him, and neither does his past. The truth is, nothing is fixed. Person you are today doesn't even have to be the person you become tomorrow. You can change your career, you can change everything that you want. You can learn something new, you can start again, you can fail, you can take a different road. So have you ever wondered what your life would look like after you finally get everything you've ever been working for. Maybe the better question is, what would you do when you get there? Because getting a good education, a good job, and a good salary might make your life easier, but they don't automatically make your life worse. And just like Tony, your story isn't over, it's only the beginning.